How you doing there? Oh man, dag nabbit, dag nabbit. You know, what do you want me to tell you? I got this little bit of a cough. Hopefully it'll go away some point in the near to mid term. Hopefully the near term. How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Beis, Daf 2 of Masechta BavaKama. Wow. It's so funny. There's like something about BavaKama that just makes it feel like the big leagues, you know? Like, just the name BavaKama says like, this is serious stuff. BavaKama. BavaKama, Bava Metzia, Bava Basra. I don't know, it just feels like some serious stuff. But anyways, I think it should be cool. I mean, so it's interesting. We got BavaKama, Bava Metzia, Bava Basra. That's like a total of a lot of pages. That's like 240, 340, 400. I mean, we're talking about more than a year. We're talking about more than a year. More than a year of just BavaKama, Bava Metzia, Bava Basra, which I'm pretty excited about, honestly. It's going to be great. Even though I haven't really learned Bava Metzia and Bava Basra to a large extent, but it's going to be great. It's going to be great. Okay, if you have an art scroll, if you have a hands-on art scroll Gemara, I recommend reading the introduction to BavaKama. I generally try to read the introductions to all of the Masechtas. They tend to be pretty good. The interesting thing, should I turn on the air conditioner? Oh, it's a good idea. That's probably a good idea. Alright, so let's try it without it and see if I get hot. I have to turn it on. The thing is, I didn't start with it, which means I can't remove the noise. Whatever. I don't know. We'll see. Akoponim, what was I saying? Where was I? So I don't remember what I said, but I generally try to read the introductions. They're pretty good. So if you have an art scroll available, I recommend reading the introduction. Akoponim, what's interesting, Taka, though, is that a lot of the introduction is actually found on the first daf of Masechta BavaKama. So I think rather than doing an introduction, I think we'll just learn the first daf and like we'll get up to like a lot of the important bits. So I think maybe let's just dive in. And yeah, I think maybe I'll turn on the air conditioner. Okay, so I got the air conditioner on. Gewaldig. Now let us jump in to the first Mishnah of BavaKama. Aba Avos Nezikin. Oh, gewaldig. There are 4 Avos Nezikin. The Gemara is going to talk about Avos and Toladus in a second. But there are 4. So first of all, what does BavaKama talk about? BavaKama, with BavaKama, we're starting Seder Nezikin. We're starting Nezik, right? To a new order of the Gemaras, Seder Nezikin. And this talks about damages, right? So this is BavaKama is going to talk about, the different kinds of damages, okay? So, I bought Avos Nezikin. There are 4 sort of parent categories of damages. Hashor, an ox, which is, a person's animal, a person's property. Ve'abor, a pit, abor b'shusarabim, a pit. Ve'amave, and the Gemara is going to explain what mave is. Ve'ahever, and a fire. Now, Lare ashor kare amave. Now, a shor and a mave are dissimilar. Velare amave kare ashor, and a mave is not like a shor. Okay, so they are different from each other. Okay, fine. Where am I? Veloze boze sheish ben ruach chaim. Now, however, there is a shared factor between shor and mave, which is that they are both involve living things, as opposed to a fire. A fire does not. A fire is not sort of alive. It doesn't have a soul. Now, shor, mave, and hever are different than a bor because out of those 4, a bor, the pit, is stationary, right? So whereas, the shor and the hever, right, fire, an animal, they travel towards the thing that they damage, right? if a shore walks up to something and gores it, the shore traveled to do the damage, whereas it's fakert, it's the opposite by a pit. The pit's just there. I remember when I was in, where was I? I was in Ubud, in Bali, and Poshit, I remember walking down the street, there was Poshit, a bor b'shus harabim. I don't remember ever seeing that anywhere else. Just Poshit, on the sidewalk, there was just a huge gaping hole into the abyss. And it was like, that is mamish, a bor b'shus harabim. So the person needs to kind of walk up to the pit and fall in. I assume that was pretty dangerous. People must get hurt there. Poshit, a bor b'shus harabim. So Shein Baruch Chaim, I even put it on Instagram, I think. I took a photo of it and put it on an Instagram story with the caption, Mamish Abor B'Shus Harabim. I think I did that. It's a long time ago already. Alright, fine, now the commonality though, between all four of these categories, Shedarkon Lehazik, that they cause damage, and it's your responsibility, right? If it's your animal, or if it's your pit, or if it's your fire, so it's your responsibility. And if you are responsible for the damages, or by way of these things, Chava Mazik, the damager, is responsible to pay for the damages. If he pays with land, then he would have to pay from the edis, from the best land. Okay, so we see that there are four categories of nizikin, and each one has its own characteristics, and so when we see certain kinds of damages, we can kind of figure out, okay, what kind of a damage it is, and it has different nafkaminas for in what context you will be responsible and how much, and okay, you can be chayav for those damages. Very exciting times. Now, says the Gemara, so now the Gemara points out, we say arba ovis nizikin, that there are four sort of parent categories of damages, implying that there are kind of subcategories. Okay, tolado, subcategories. So again, midiktani ovis michal dika toladis. From the fact that we said there are sort of parent categories, there must be child categories, subcategories. Tolosein kayotze boin, olav kayotze boin. So the Gemara wants to know right now, when we say ovis and toladis, are the toladis like the ovis or not? And the Gemara is now going to bring two examples of ovis and toladis. We have on Shabbos, that we're about to mention Shabbos, we have, of course, ovis, melacha, and toladis. And also by Tuma, we have ovis and toladis. And I'll just say it outside quickly first. As we know from Masechta Shabbos, ovis and toladis are be'etzim the same, right? That, if you do an av on purpose, you'll be chayiv skila. If you do a tolada, you'll be chayiv skila. Masha ein kain by avosatum, right? Tuma, you have an ava tuma is mitame odem v'kelim. Avlada tuma is only mitame, right? Like a rishon the tuma is only mitame ochlin umashkin, right? So they're different. They have different categories. So that's what the Gemara wants to know. That when we say in the context of nizikin, ovis and toladis, is it like Shabbos, whereas the the toladis are like the ovis, or is it like Tuma, where the toladis are not like the ovis? That's the shaila. So it's really nachamo. Midiktani ovis mechal deika toladis. From the fact that we mentioned the ovis, it implies that there are toladis. Tolosein kayotze bain, olav kayotze bain. Are the toladis like the ovis or nisht? So Gabi Shabbos Tanan. So we know that by Shabbos we have a Mishnah. Ovis melachis haboim choser achis. That there are 39 ovis melache, ovos michadika toladis, and when we say that there are 39 parent categories by Shabbos, implying that there are subcategories, todosein kayotze boen, and we say that, oh my gosh, it's getting worse. Gosh, so by Shabbos, todosein kayotze boen, the toladis, the subcategories, are like the parent categories. Loshna of chatas, loshna tolada chatas. If by accident you do an av melacha, you'll be chayav a korban chatas. And if by accident you do a tolada, you'll be chayav a korban chatas also. Loshna av skila, loshna tolada skila. Doesn't matter if on purpose you do an av, you'll be chayav skila. if on purpose you do a tolada, you'll be chayiv skila. So what's the difference? Is there any difference between an av and a tolada? Well, nafkemine dilu ovid shtei avos bade adadi inam shtei tolados bade adadi michayev kol chada v'chada vilu ovid av v'tolada tidei lo michayev el chada. The difference is that if you do two separate avos, so by accident, so bichayev two korban chatases. Right, if you do two separate avos, or if you do two separate toladas by accident, you'll be chayiv two korban chatases. But if you do an av and also its tolada, well then you're only going to be chayiv once for the package. So if you just do a tolada, you'll be chayiv. If you just do an av, you'll be chayiv. If you do two avos, you'll be chayiv twice. If you do two toladas, you'll be chayiv twice. But if you do an av and its tolada, so then, if you do the parent and its subcategory, you'll only be chayiv once. So, right, so let's read that again. Right, nafkemine, 3 lines before it gets wide. Dilu ovid shtei avos bade adadi. If you do two separate avos together, inam shtei tolados bade adadi. Alternatively, two separate toladas together, michayev kol chada v'chada, you'll be chayiv for each one separately. But vilu ovid av v'tolada didei. But if you do an av and its tolada, lo michayev el chada, you'll only be chayiv once. Now, according to Rabbi Eliezer, however, who says that no, even in that case, if you do an av and its tolada together, you still will be chayiv twice, once for the av, once for the tolada. So then, in that case, what is the difference between an av and a tolada? So, hach dav b'mishkan chshiva kari le av, hach lo av b'mishkan chshiva kari lo tolada. Look, the difference is, if it was a malacha that was done in the Mishkan, so then it's called an av. If it wasn't done in the Mishkan, but it's a similar activity, then it's a tolada. It's just a technicality about where we know it from, where it comes from. But according to Rabbi Eliezer, there wouldn't be any practical nafkaminas in terms of chiyuvim or anything. So we see that by Shabbos, the tolados are like the avos. You can be chayiv for both of them. Gabi tumas tanan. Now, in the context of tumah, we learn in the Mishnah, ovis hatumu. When it comes to an ava tumah, we know this already. Hasheretz, v'ashichva zera, utmei meis. There are others, I think, as well. I think nevela is an ava tumah, I think, as well. Todosein, lav kayotze, boy, and there must be others. But anyways, Babylon. Okay, now, so and todosein lav kayotze ben. So there are, of course, we know avos atuma, which we just mentioned, sheretz, shichva zera, semen, tumas, tmeimei, somebody who touched a corpse becomes an avatuma. So okay, so there are avos atuma. Okay. Todosein lav kayotze ben, but toladis, a rishon atuma, is not like an avatuma. The av mitame adam v'chelim, and avatuma, as we know, don't worry, we're not getting into complicated tumah. Right? The tumah midoraisa is easy. Once you get into their abundance, it can drive you nuts. But midoraisa, so the ilu av mitame adam v'chelim, and av melacha is mitame people, mitame vessels, but v'ilu tolados, but an arishon the tumah, ochlin umashkin mitame adam v'chelim lo mitame. It's mitame ochlin umashkin, but not adam v'chelim. So hacha. So what do we say when it comes to nizikin? When we're talking about avos nizikin and tolados of nizikin, are the tolados like the avos, would be chayiv in the same way, or not? Rav Papa yesh mein kayotze ben v'yesh mein lav kayotze ben. So, well, Rav Papa says, look, some of them, wow, I sneezed, I paused the recording just in time for that sneeze. Oh my gosh. Man, if I would have sneezed into the microphone, that would have messed up the whole episode probably. Because you need the audio to be relatively balanced. I think if I sneeze into the mic, it would probably break the audio. That's not a technical term. But I don't know, I'd probably have to figure out how to I'd probably have to cut it out or something. I try to avoid messing with it as much as I can. So I'm happy I got that pause right in there. So he says, look, some of the tolados are in some cases they're like the others, in some cases they're not like the others. Fine. So far what we have said is that there are 4 sort of primary categories of nizikin. We said that those are called the avos. Avos implies that there are tolados. And we say that sometimes the tolados are like the avos, sometimes not. So now, next. Tanu Rabbanan Gimel Avis Nemu B'Shor Hakeren Vashin Baregel. So now, as I said, already on the first daf, we get a lot of the art school introduction is already on the first daf, right? We already mentioned the 4 avos nizikin. Now, within the 4 avos nizikin, one of them is shor. We're now breaking down shor, an ox, and saying that within the category of ox, there are 3 distinct types of damages that an ox can do. There's keren, there's shane, and there's regel. So this is all part of the sort of intro, right? The first daf of Masechta BavaKama is like an intro to the Masechta, I guess, right? So we have the 4 avos nizikin, and then within shor, within ox, which is one of the avos nizikin, it has its own 3 avos, its own 3 categories, right? Which is keren, shane, and regel. And the point is that, so keren means the the horn, shane means a tooth, and regel means a foot. And those are 3 distinct types of damage that a ox can do. It doesn't simply mean, if it damaged with its horn, or if it damaged with its foot, or if it damaged with its tooth, as we're going to see soon. It's actually 3 unique descriptions and categories of a way that an ox can damage, or that an animal could damage. The point being that if an animal does a kind of damage that isn't necessarily with its horn, right, as we're going to see soon, that maybe it can bite something with its teeth, but it might not necessarily be considered shane. As we're going to see, each of these, sorry, Mom, I'm rubbing my nose. I think it's because of that sneeze that I did recently. So as we're going to see, each category kind of has their own sort of characteristics of what defines the damage of a horn, or what defines the damage done by a tooth, or what defines a type of damage done by a foot, so that if there is any kind of damage, we could try to categorize any kind of damage that's done by an animal, we can try to categorize it properly. So again, so Tanu Rabbanan Gimel Avis, and we're going to get to on today's daf. Tanu Rabbanan Gimel Avis Nemu B'Shor, that there are 3 avis within shor. Hakeren Vashen Varegel, a horn, a tooth, and a foot. Those are 3 categories of damage that a shor can do. Keren Minolan, how do we know that one of the categories of damage for an ox is its horn? The Tanu Rabbanan, that the rabbis taught, Ki Yigach, well the pasuk Pashut says, right? Ki Yigach shor es ish. If a ox gores a fellow. En Gichela Bekeren. And says the pasuk, and says the Gemara, that when it says ki yigach, how do I know what ki yigach means? How do I know that means the horn? Well, shenemar, as the pasuk says, vayaslu tzidkiya ben knaino karne barzel. That Tzidkiya ben Knaina made these horns of iron. Vayomer, and he says, Koyomer Hashem be'ele tenagach es iron v'gomer, gore, do a negicha with these iron horns. So we see that goring is with horns. Vayomer, and the pasuk Oichid says in Tvarim by Yosef, b'chor shoro hadar lo v'karne re'em karnov boem amim yinagach. It says karne re'em, the horns of a re'em. Re'em is the name of the kibbutz where all those Yidden were massacred on Shabbos a few weeks ago. So let's learn in there. So the learning is in their zchus, in their memory. Choshor hadalo v'karne re'em, kind of in the horns of re'em are the horns. Boem amim yenagach, and with those horns of re'em, it gores. So we see a juxtaposition between horns and goring. My v'omer. So how come we need two psukim? How come, right, we quoted a pasuk from Malachim, then we quoted a pasuk from Dvarim. So how come we have two psukim? Well, because if you're going to say, look, the first pasuk was from the Navi. We can't learn out halachis in the Torah from the Navi. We need to learn it out from psukim in the Torah. So therefore, Tashma b'chosher hadalo, fine, I will bring you a pasuk from Sefer Dvarim. V'aymelefu gilim milsa ba'almahu t'negicha b'karinu. To which the Gemara says, what do you mean we can't learn out halachis from Navi? We're not learning out halachis. We're just learning out, how do I know that when it says gor, which comes from a pasuk in the Torah and it teaches, that's the halacha that we're teaching, about what happens if you're nogeach. How do I know that negicha is with bikarin? Oh, by the way, we have some psukim that can shed some light on it. We're not teaching halachis from Navi. So elam rather I may have thought ki poligrachmana bin tam lemud. That's another important BavaKama concept. That when an ox gores, so there's different liabilities of the owner based on if the ox was warned 3 times or not, right? There's a difference between a shor muad and a shor tam. That by default an ox is considered a shor tam. A shor tam means that it was not yet warned 3 times against goring. Once it gores 3 times and it is warned 3 times, so then it becomes a shor muad. And the difference is that a shor tam, when it comes to negicha, is going to be chayiv, right? The owner is going to be chayiv chatzi nezek, half damages, whereas a shor muad, the owner is going to be chayiv full damages. So I may have thought that when we make this distinction between if it was a shor tam or a shor muad, that if it was a shor tam you only pay chatzi nezek. Hanimili betlusha. I may have thought that that's davka, maybe right like the horn in Melachim, where it says he made iron horns. Those are not horns that are connected to an animal. They were man-made iron horns. So I might think that maybe there's only a distinction that you pay chatzi nezek by a shor tam if the shor tam was had a horn in its mouth and it gored that way, which is clearly kind of an irregular way for an ox to gore. So I might think that only if it gores in such an irregular way would we say that a tam pays chatzi nezek. But if the horn was still connected to the ox, right? Meaning if an ox's horn and if the ox gores with its horn, so I might think, well, that's kind of a regular way of goring using its own horn. So I might think that you would always be chayiv nezek shalim in that case. Tashma so therefore we mentioned the kainei re'im karna boim am yinagach. So therefore we have the other pasuk which refers to the kainei re'im in the context of negicha. So we see that no, even when the horn is still is attached to the animal gores with its own horns. Still, if it was a shor tam, if it was not yet worn 3 times, it would be chatzi nezek, and if it was worn 3 times, it would be a shor muad, and it would be chayiv nezek shalim. So now we get into the tolados of Keren. Okay, so we mentioned that goring is with your horn, is with the horn. So what would be examples of tolados of the horn? So what are the tolados of Keren? Negifa. Well, for example, if a ox damages with its body, right? Doesn't gore something, but it throws its body weight against something. Neshicha, or if it bites something. Revitza, if it tramples. Now all of these things are intentional. If it intentionally goes and tramples on something. Uvita, or it intentionally kicks. So Maisha Negicha Dekari La'av. So how come out of all of these examples where where a shor intentionally causes damage, do we specifically call goring a av, the av, the avos nezikin, the av nezikin? I don't know why. Maybe using its body weight is in av, right? Why is it davka the horn? Dichsiv ki yigach. Well, the pasuk says ki yigach shor es ish. So we see. So because there's a pasuk, so that's why the Keren is the av. But negifa nami ksiv ki yigof. Oh, But the Gemara points out that when an ox damages another ox, it says ki yigof shor ish as shor re'eu. So it says negifa. So it sounds like negifa, which we said is using the body, should also be an av. So hai negifa negichoi. But the Gemara points out that actually when the pasuk says ki yigof shor ish as shor re'eu, ki yigof there is not talking about using its body, it's talking about using its horn. It's actually negicha, it's actually goring. The Tanya is one of the brayso pasach b'negifa v'sim b'negicha. If you look at that pasuk, it says ki yigof shor ish as shor re'eu v'meis umachus as shor achai v'chatzu as kaspo v'gamas meis yachtzun o noda ki shor nagachu mitbol shilshom. So in that same pasuk, it's actually two pasukim, but in that same context, it starts out by talking about ki yigof, and then it says onoda ki shor nagach. So it's talking about negifa, and then it's talking about negicha. So the point is that no, actually the negifa that it's talking about is actually negicha. It's talking about goring the whole time. The whole time it's talking about goring, right? So harezo right? So zoe negifa, zoe negicha. That one second. Pasach negifa v'sim negicha. Lo malach to say to you zoe negifa. That when it says ki yigof, it's actually talking about ki yigach. Okay, fine. So therefore, the av is Karen, is goring. The other things that are similar to goring, which we're going to get into in a minute or so, in a few minutes, the others are tolados. They are like goring. Mai shno gabi odom tichsiv ki yigach, umai shno gabi behema tichsiv ki yigof. Now, fact the Gemara, why do we have to use two different words when it comes to a fellow, when it comes to an animal? Right? It says if an ox gores a person, it says ki yigach. And then it talks about when an ox gores another animal, it says ki yigof. So how come the different words? Because Adam de isle mazole ksiv ki yigach. A fellow who has mazole, I don't even know how to translate that, but let's call it awareness. It's kind of situational awareness, and he's going to be careful not to get gored or anything. Watch out for himself. So, in order for an ox to gore and cause damage for a person, the ox would really have to intend to harm the fellow. So, behema deleis la mazala, but an animal who apparently doesn't have that same awareness, so then ksiv ki yigof. It says ki yigof, which is more like it happens to be, as opposed to like intentional. Umilsa agav orchi kamashmalon, and kind of what's the difference? What's the point? Why? Okay, so what? Demuad le'adam avimud le'behema, umud le'behema le'avimud le'adam. The difference is, as I mentioned a minute ago, that for an ox to gore a human, the assumption is that it's more dangerous, right? It would really have to have intended to damage this human, and therefore, if it has done this 3 times, and it's a muad, it's been warned 3 times, about goring people, but that's more stringent than goring animals, so it's also muad lebehema, right? If it's muad le'adam, kal v'chomer it's muad lebehema. But the other way around is not the case, right? If 3 times it was warned against goring animals, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's warned against goring people, because that's a different, because that's like a more sort of hardcore kind of situation. Okay, that's enough, Kamina. So now, as I promised, we're going to learn about the different categories of what constitutes Keren, what constitutes Shane, what constitutes Regel, and how do we categorize these things? Because if you notice, right, as we mentioned, right, on the list of tolados of Keren was biting. Shouldn't biting be Shane? We also had trampling on something, kicking. Shouldn't those be Regel? So, in fact, the Gemara, Neshicha, tolada de Shane. So shouldn't biting be Shane? Shouldn't that be tooth? I don't understand, right? You bite with your mouth, that would make sense that should be Shane. So no, Shane is actually a category of damage. Lo, Shane yesh hanoya le'azeka, ha in hanoya le'azeka. The category of Shane, of the tooth, is like if an animal eats something, right? If a person's animal goes and eats food belonging to somebody else, that is Shane. That's the tooth, eating. That when it comes to eating, there's benefit. meaning the animal gets benefit. I don't know, maybe also the owner gets benefit. He doesn't have to feed the animal, right? By eating that food, there is definitely benefit. So part of the category of tooth, of shein, is that there must be benefit. But over here, if an animal just simply bites somebody, let's say, so that is more like goring. Right? If an animal just goes up to a person and gores a person, so also if an animal just goes up to a person and bites a person, it's basically the same thing. Nobody gets any benefit from that, right? There's no benefit from that. And it's just purely the animal going up and damaging. So, okay, fine. So that is why biting is a tolada of Karen and it's not shein. Revitzo v'ita. Now we had also said that trampling on something intentionally or kicking intentionally, tolada de regeli. So we had said that it's a tolada of Karen, but shouldn't it be a tolada of regel? After all, you're trampling, you're kicking with your foot. So lo regel ezekon matzui hani en ezekon matzui. No, when it comes to regel, the damage caused by the foot is kind of as the animal is walking normally. There was no intention; it was just walking in the market and it stepped on something. It didn't intentionally trample on it; it was just walking and it stepped on something and broke it. That would be regel. But here, when it kicks or when it tramples on something and it's intentional, well, that's basically the same thing as goring with a horn. It intentionally caused damage. So therefore, it would not be regel; it would be Karen. It would be a tolada of Karen. Now, elatodosein lav kayotze ben to Amar Papa aheya. So now the Gemara wants to know. Rav Papa had said, right? We had asked, are the tolados like the avos? Rav Papa says, well, some of them are, some of them aren't. So which wouldn't be like the av? Ilema ahane. If you're going to say, well, I don't know, maybe like biting is different than goring. But Maishna Karen, the kavanoso lahazik, umamoncha ushmiroso lechos. Now the definition of Karen, it intends to do damage, and it's your property, and you're responsible to guard it. Haninami, also if it bites. Kavanoso lahazik, it's intending to bite. Mamoncha, it's your ox. Ushmiroso lecha, you're responsible to guard it. So why should there be any difference between these tolados and the av when it comes to Karen? So ela tolada de Karen ki Karen, no. So rather, you're right. The tolados of Karen are like Karen. When Rav Papa says that there are instances where the tolada is not like the av, that's referring to shein and regel. It's not talking about Karen, because the examples of tolados by Karen, those would be like the av. Shein v'regel eichok sive. Where are shein and regel written? The Tanya is within the Brisa of V'shilach, right? It says in the pasuk V'shilach as beiro uvir b'stei acher. Right? I think that's what it says. Maybe. Yeah, V'shilach as beiro uvir b'stei acher. Yeah. So V'shilach zeh regel. When it says V'shilach, that's referring to regel. V'chein omer mishalchei regel hashor ve'achomer. So you see V'shilach is regel. Uvir zoshen v'chein omer kasher yivar hagol ad tumo. So it says like bi'er yivar agol, and Rashi says it's he gives two explanations. One of them is that gol, because it's like your sometimes your teeth is revealed, so it's like gol. Okay, seder. So bi'er is a reference to shein, to tooth. Okay, fine. Friends, we'll stop here. That was the first daf of Masechta BavaKama. I think it was pretty cool. So yeah, as I said, the first daf of Masechta BavaKama kind of serves as like an intro, right? There's the four avos nizikin, right? There's shor, bor, mave, which we haven't explained what it is yet, and hever, fire. And then we got into, where we mentioned that the avos and the tolados, we said some of the tolados are like the avos, some are not, according to our papa. Then we said, we broke down shor. We said within shor, within the ox, there are three categories: Karen, shein, and regel. And we also defined what constitutes Karen, what constitutes shein, what constitutes regel. Because interestingly, you can have examples of damage that were done with the tooth, but they aren't actually shein; they're Karen. You can have examples of damage done with the foot of the ox, and it's not regel; it's Karen, right? So Karen is the type of damage where the animal goes and damages intentionally and gets no benefit from it. So if it gores, if it bites, if it kicks, Shein is that the animal damages but gets benefit from it. For example, if it eats something, it gets benefit from eating it. So that would be an example of shein. And regel is something that it just does as it's going, it's just walking and something breaks, it steps on something and breaks, not intentionally, but just kind of out of its normal behavior. So that would be an example of regel. Friends, that was the base of Masechta BavaKama. I hope you enjoyed. Peace out.